Today we're talking about Kate and Leopold, arguably the end of the golden age of Meg Ryan rom-coms. It came out in 2001, the year that Meg Ryan turned 40. 40, the age that Sally in When Harry Met Sally was terrified of becoming.
And I'm gonna be 40!
When?
Someday.
Hugh Jackman, Ryan's co-star, was 33. Billy Crystal is 14 years older than Meg Ryan, and Hugh Jackman is only 7 years younger. And yet, because of the gender dynamics, there's something downright exciting about this age difference. A 40-year-old man with a 26-year-old woman? Who cares? A 40-year-old woman with a 33-year-old man? Subversive. Meg made many other rom-coms than the ones that we are covering, but we picked Kate and Leopold as the last one we would cover in her oeuvre, because it feels like the end of her queen of the rom-com era. At 40, she's aging out of it, and she chooses to do so by playing against type. There's no neurotic insecurity in Kate McKay. She's not aspirational in this film. There's nothing adorable about her. Kate and Leopold follows Kate, a rising executive at a marketing firm. She's up for a vice president position, and it's all in the hands of her boss, JJ, played sleazily by the wonderful Bradley Whitford.
You skew male. You're like a man. A man who understands women, their desires, their needs. You understand them, but you're not really one of them.
Kate is a hard worker everywhere. She busts her butt at work, and then she supports her brother at home. Also at home, her very recently ex-boyfriend lives in the apartment above her, and Kate works hard at trying to torment him in her rage and disappointment about their breakup.
Hello?
My Palm Pilot, you still have it.
Kate, it's 1 in the morning.
And clearly you're awake, so what is the infraction?
This ex-boyfriend is named Stuart and is played by Liev Schreiber. Stuart is a physicist who has found a break in time, as you do, and that has allowed him to time travel to 1876.
It was over the East River, Kate, just where I said it would be.
You found the portal.
A portal into April 28th, 1876. I jumped off the Brooklyn Bridge and took a walk in 1876 today.
While there, he comes across Leopold, the Duke of Albany. Leopold is an inventor and the nephew of a jerky money hunter who's trying to set Leopold up with the wealthiest woman in New York to save the family from genteel poverty.
Born into privilege, yet perversely ashamed of it. That is your tragedy. My God, if my brother could only see you, he'd be heartbroken.
Leopold spots Stuart taking photos and accidentally follows Stuart to 2001 New York City. Stuart is stressed about keeping Leo safe in 2001 until they can get him back to 1876.
With all due respect, I can't let you just go running around free out there, okay? This is New York City. It's not just a safe place anymore. I mean, look at you. You look like some sort of psychotic escapee from a Renaissance fair.
But because of the rip in time, elevators stop working. Leopold will invent them sometime after 1876, but because Leopold is currently in 2001, the time-space continuum has not addressed the elevator issue. So Stuart falls and shatters his legs and goes from the hospital to a psych ward because he's talking about time travel. So Leopold and Kate start spending time together. Charlie, Kate's brother, thinks that Leopold is a deep, in-process method actor. Kate thinks he's one of Stuart's computer programming friends. But eventually, Leopold's old-fashioned manners and chivalry win everyone over, regardless of who they think he is. Kate looks at Leopold and doesn't fall in love with him, but realizes that focus groups and consumers will. She hires Leopold to shill for the Diet Butter client that her firm is currently consulting for.
This guy's a dream. He's handsome, honest, courteous, stands when you walk in a room, brings you brioche in bed. If you eat his margarine, maybe your hips will shrink and he'll come to your door.
Between the audition and the filming of the commercial, though, the two do fall in love. Leopold is inspired by her engaged brain, unlike those dumb 1870s women who just want to get married. And Kate is seduced by a man who knows how to treat her right. But the tension comes to a head when Leopold, while filming the Butter commercial, realizes that Kate is selling schlock.
What has happened to the world? You have every convenience, every comfort, yet no time for integrity.
No. What I don't have time for are pious speeches by 200-year-old men who've never had to work a day in their life.
You have no idea what I've done with my life.
And you have no idea what I've done with mine.
He thinks she's a hypocrite with no spine. She thinks he's a privileged jerk who doesn't understand that capitalism means compromise in order to survive. The two break up, Stuart breaks out of the psych hospital, and Leopold goes back to the past to fix the time-space continuum. It is only then that Stuart gets back his photos from his time in the past, and suddenly he sees Kate was there.
All this time, I thought that I had pretzel faith and that it had to be untwisted. But what I never considered is that the whole thing is a pretzel. He was supposed to come forward, then he was supposed to go back again, and so is she.
And so she does. Without more than a few minutes of thinking, she quits her job, giving up her big promotion, says goodbye to her brother forever, and jumps off the Brooklyn Bridge and into Leopold's arms. The two dance at a ball. Leopold doesn't marry a rich girl who he doesn't love. Kate doesn't have to sell bad butter anymore. They live happily ever after. Kate and Leopold is a weird movie. It's only 3 years after You've Got Mail, but Meg Ryan looks totally different, and this vibe is very, very different. Here is Katerina Glitra on some of the weirdness of the film.
Quite a few of the sort of 80s, particularly the 1990s post-feminist, the chick flick films, they're wearing their politics on the sleeve to an extent of having conversations about equality, having conversations literally in the film about women's work, about professional careers, about the toll that it takes on people. But the heterosexual romance then seems to come in to solve the problems for that one woman.
Kate and Leopold is all about a woman realizing that she wants to be treated like a lady. She's a strong, powerful woman, but being a strong, powerful woman is exhausting. So a man comes in and rescues her. Kate is a woman who has made her own lovely little nighttime routine as a single woman, and yet finds it nice to be carried to bed now that that's on offer. Here's Tamar Jeffers McDonald on the complexities of the film.
It's a weird mixture because there's a really interesting speech where Kate says they're on that rooftop and he's made it all pretty and romantic. And she says something like, romantic comedies keep making us do this. They keep selling us this BS about everything being perfect.
Maybe the whole love thing is just a grown-up version of Santa Claus. Just a myth we've been fed since childhood. So we keep buying magazines and joining clubs and doing therapy and watching movies with hip-hop songs played over love montages, all in this pathetic attempt to explain why our love Santa keeps getting caught in the chimney.
And she sounds very tough and very self-aware. But what are we in? We're in the middle of a movie set, which has then created a miniature movie set where, he's controlled the lighting, he's controlled practically the moon, and everything's twinkling.
Kate and Leopold falls into a bunch of tropes. It's the damsel not in distress being saved. It's time travel. It's opposites attract. It's enemies to lovers. And it's also the brash American and the refined Brit. Here, once again, is Tamar Jeffers McDonald on the American and the nobleman of it all.
It's like a Labradoodle, she said obscurely. So you take the best of both breeds, and their children are going to be the kind of people who are going to build the America you now have, aren't they? They're going to have his courtesy and refinement, but her go-gettingness and her stick-to-itiveness and her, her work ethic and all those things that come from, the manifest destiny idea of American spirit. So their kids are going to be the way. That's why you need that breed.
Our last two movies of Meg Ryan, this one and last one, French Kiss, are fish out of water stories in which Meg Ryan's sheer Americanness is a topic of conversation. She has been by this time so established as America's sweetheart, that Kate Leopold can mess with that idea and show the edges of that sweetheartedness, as long as the edges are sanded down again by the end. I'm Vanessa Zoltan.
I'm Hannah McGregor.
And this is Hot and Bothered. Hannah, before we jump in, we have to tell the people we have a live show coming up. An in-person live show.
An in-person live show in the very time zone where I live, in the Pacific Northwest, in Seattle, Washington specifically.
Does it make you feel loved or does it make you feel creeped out that I was like, Hannah, I will be within 1,000 miles of you. We should do something.
Loved. As I told you, one of my primary motivators is attention. So listeners, I'm really going to need you to come to this live show and pay a lot of attention to me.
So it is September 8th. This is just a stroke of genius for our producer, Ariana, because Ariana noticed that it is the 25th anniversary of Notting Hill, arguably one of the classic rom-coms of the past 25 years. And what a great opportunity to reflect on it. And so that's what we're going to do for this live show. We're going to do a live episode. We are going to have some games. We're going to have real cute exclusive merch. And we're just really excited. So you can get tickets at notsorryworks.com. And come see me, come see Hannah, come see Ariana.
Come see our cute merch. I can't wait.
I can't wait either. I also can't wait to talk to you about today's movie, Kate and Leopold. Because Hannah, I used to really love this movie.
You know what? I also remember really loving this movie.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. And upon rewatching, I was like, I wonder what I was seeing then, because I had a hard time. Sometimes I can like reconnect to like what I loved about a thing when I was younger with more ease. But with this one, I was like, it wasn't even like, oh, I used to love this and now I see it critically. It was like, this movie's kind of boring.
Yeah. I tapped into what I liked about it.
Okay, tell me.
Okay, what I used to like about it was that it made being a sister and a girlfriend look hard. And I really appreciated that. She is not a manic pixie dream girl. She is like mean to dogs, which is like not a characteristic I like in the person. But as a sister with two brothers who always is the one in charge, like even though I'm the middle, everyone calls me the oldest, including my older brother, right? Like I have like a lot of male friends and I was like never the cute, cool girl friend. I was the one who was like, that's sexist and like ruined fun. And I feel like that is Kate's vibe in this movie. And I like that. I like that she is tired and mad and this man comes in to make her life easier. I like that.
Yeah, I will say, as a spoiler for the scene that I have selected for our Patreon watch along, it's the scene where she says she's tired.
It's my favorite scene.
That is the scene where I was like, oh, this is interesting because also Meg Ryan is 40 in this movie.
Yeah.
And Hugh Jackman is 33. And she is tired and he is making her dinner.
Yes. I remember this about reading 50 Shades of Grey, too. I know I've talked about this a lot, but I picked up 50 Shades of Grey pretty, like, late in the zeitgeisty moment, but, like, in the zeitgeisty moment. And he buys her a computer and then sends the internet installation guy. Yeah. And I was like, what? Like, hot.
Oh, my God.
Leopold is going around making Kate's life easier. And it's so hot. But I agree with you. This movie is kind of tedious.
It's kind of tedious. And unfortunately, I think as we begin to dig down from what it knows it believes about love to what its subtexts are about love, I think it starts to go in some perhaps insidious directions.
Truly, like mind-bogglingly in Year of Our Lord 2024. I was like, wow, Vanessa, the bar was somewhere. The bar was somewhere when this movie came out.
I horseback rode as a child. And when you are first learning to jump, they just put the crossbar just right on the ground.
Uh-huh.
It's just right on the ground. And then they start lifting it off the ground so you can like learn to go over. But that's what I picture. It's not nothing.
Right. Okay, so Hannah, what does this movie believe about love?
I mean, for me, first and foremost, it does seem to believe that love is somehow faded.
Yes.
The big revelation is that Kate's ex, Stuart, the physicist, sees Kate in the background of one of the photos that he took when he was in the past. And he's like, oh, time, it's like a beautiful pretzel. Your future is in the past and you were always going to go there. And he was always meant to come here and you were always meant to meet. So there's a real investment in fate and these sort of patterns that are inevitable if only we can like take a step back far enough to see them. Like, love defies the logics of time and space. Thank goodness, because the time travel logics in this movie are shoddy, but that's fine, because love defies them.
Is this where we talk about the fact that in the logic of the movie, Liev Schreiber and Meg Ryan are related? Like, she's his great-great-grandmother and they dated? Or do we...
Okay.
Are we saving that for later?
I think we can just touch on it here.
Sure.
From what I understand and from this viewing, it's cut from the theatrical release version of this movie.
It was a deleted scene on the DVD.
So it's part of the backstory that gets totally cut out of the movie, that the reason why Stuart goes and finds Leopold in particular is that he is Stuart's great-great or great-great-great-grandfather.
Right.
And then it's like, oh, actually, Kate, the reason why you and I were together was actually so that you could be my great-great-grandmother. You did sleep with your great-great-grandmother for 4 years.
4 years. It was a serious relationship.
So I guess they figured out the audiences weren't into that.
I like that they wanted to go there, though. I feel like the fact that they wanted to go there hints to what I like about this movie.
Can I say more?
It's weird, right? Like, it is. I'm going to tell you what I think that one of the arguments this movie is actually making about love. Mm-hmm. You're going to laugh. This is potentially a generous reading. But I really do think that this movie thinks that love is hard in modern times when capitalism makes us want to be as efficient with our time as possible and have no positive sensory feelings. And so I do think it is like an anti-capitalist, pro-sensuality movie, except that it's not. But I do think that it thinks that it's hard to fall in love nowadays because she's working, he's working, they can't totally support each other. They microwave dinner, and who can fall in love over $3 chuck and microwave dinners?
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a focus on how romance, like real love, like so many of the other sort of luxuries that he describes, knowing how to put together a bouquet and what different flowers communicate, or knowing how to ride a horse, or carefully designing a multi-meal menu that pleases the senses, that these are all things that have been done away with in the contemporary moment. And that instead what we've got is efficiency, and everything is soulless, and everything is a lie.
Yeah.
Like JJ as the sort of stand-in for everything that's bad about modern masculinity, as the sort of pseudo-romantic rival to Leopold, is a liar. Like, everything he says and does is patently about performance. None of it is about depth of feeling or genuine investment. And Leopold stands in for this idea that you can still slow down and really enjoy things, including really enjoy the experience of falling in love. I don't know if the movie knows how to solve that in the modern era.
It does. Well, yeah, it does. You go back in time. Go back in time where women can't vote. It's not a real solution. But Whenever there's a movie where someone comes from the past into modern times, I'm always like, oh my God, it is. It's so loud now, is always how I feel. And then I remember that, like, it was really loud, like in London in the 19th century too. And there were no sewers and pollution was worse.
It smelled so bad, and we would both have already died in childbirth.
Oh, even without childbirth, I would have died of strep throat as a child.
Oh, yeah. No.
I had strep throat 8 times when I was in the 2nd grade. I would be so dead.
It's also definitely something that this movie believes about love, is that it was more possible / more genuine in the past.
I don't think it does believe that.
I already am arguing with myself in my head, but you do it out loud.
So in the past, we see Leopold, who's the Duke of Albany, who was raised in England but moved to the United States as a boy or whatever. And he is now of age, and his uncle is like, you have to get married in order to save the family's title or whatever. And he is like going to pick a mercenary wife.
He's going to pick a wife in a mercenary way. If he was going to pick a mercenary wife, this would be a way better movie. If Kristen Schaal at the end of the movie just stabs him while they're waltzing, better movie.
But right, he's like, I will literally marry the wealthiest woman. Like, tell me who the wealthiest woman is. And it's the trees from Schenectady. And so that's who he's going to marry. And then it turns out that through the magic of time travel and true love, he doesn't have to do that. But I don't think the movie is arguing that it was easier then. There's a room full of women. At the end of the movie, he's like, raise a glass to my wife, and a bunch of women are like, could it be me? Right? Like, apparently he's not even going to propose. He's just going to announce one of them.
He's going to let you know.
Like, that's not romantic. Whereas Charlie, Kate's younger brother, played by Breckin Meyer, he does fall in love in modern times when someone is like, just be yourself. Take it down a notch. Stop trying to impress. Whatever.
Okay. The whatever is you getting at the way the logic of the movie falls apart. Because
yes, but I am saying that someone does fall in love now.
Yes, by adopting the mannerisms and the sort of courtly gestures of the past. So can we talk about the subtext? Can we move into subtext? Are we ready for subtext?
Let's do it. Let's do it before your head explodes. Everyone, there is steam coming out of Hannah's ears.
Because I do think the subtext of this is that women are happier with traditional gender roles.
Do I think that?
I really do. I really think Kate is told repeatedly that she is manlike. She's not like other women. She dresses in suits. She's very cutthroat. She's not sensitive. She doesn't like cooking. And her relationship with Leopold is about learning to be taken care of, about becoming accustomed to chivalry. And chivalry is fundamentally about the inferiority of women. It's a fundamentally sexist construct. She starts wearing dresses for him, with him. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, the transition that she goes through is to go back in time, where she is going to give up her career entirely, all of her other relationships, connections, any other community that she has.
She says goodbye to her brother.
Says goodbye to her brother, like also giving up all of her freaking human rights. Like, she is going to be his property. She has gone back in time to become his property, and that's her happy ever after. That blows.
Yes. I agree with all of that. It's not totally traditional gender roles. He is cooking for her. He is taking care of her. And I think, like, one of the things that this movie really argues for is, like, time to plan. It is just like a pro slowing down movie, which is very funny because the iPhone was not a thing yet. Like, Charlie, Breckin Meyer's character, and Hugh Jackman, who's playing Leopold, they go flower shopping together, and Breckin Meyer just grabs this like ready-made flower bouquet. And Hugh Jackman is like, no, we select each flower individually. I think that in contemporary understandings, I would say like making a beautiful bouquet of flowers slowly and picking each flower slowly is considered like a feminine thing to do, right? It's not totally traditional gender roles. When she starts cleaning the table at the end of their romantic dinner, he's like, no, leave it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
All of your points stand. I just think it's with a little asterisk.
I agree. I think there are many ways that in the present, she is positioned as the more dominant, powerful member of their relationship, both because of the knowledge that she has of the world that they're in. She is also older than him. And I think, like, not only as an actor is Meg Ryan older than Hugh Jackman, but I also think that's there in the movie.
Absolutely.
She is clearly somebody who has like quite an established career, has had previous long-running relationships, is like world weary and like not interested in bullshit. There's that horrible thing that Stuart says to her when she says, I gave you the best years of my life. And he says, those were your best years, which is like,
I know.
I don't care if he like gives an impassioned monologue about the nature of time later on. Absolutely not. Throw him in the river. A disgusting thing to say to a person. But yeah, no, I agree. And I also feel like for me, the end of the movie undermines so much of that.
Yeah.
Interesting sort of potential power play.
I agree. The end of the movie is completely unsatisfying. The fact that she has to give up everything for him.
Yeah.
The only thing that I'll say in defense is that it doesn't feel like she is going back because she is interested in giving up everything for him. It feels like she's going back because she sees herself in this picture. So because of the destiny thing, it's a cheat. But I'm just interested in the ways that films work, where they can do something plot-wise while emotionally making you feel like that thing isn't happening.
I mean, the going back in the past is positioned primarily as taking the vulnerable emotional leap that love requires, which is then turned into a physical, literal leap. And there's also like, there's question marks left around his future as well, because he is impoverished gentry. That's why he was supposed to marry an American heiress. And so he is marrying somebody who has nothing.
Literally nothing.
Literally nothing. And so there's a big question mark around like what their future is going to be as well. I mean, a lot of the anti-capitalist, slow down, enjoy your senses life he is advocating for, while yes, it is a life that he creates on the micro scale for her in the 5 days he's in New York, is ultimately a life that is built on servants and inherited wealth and white supremacy and colonialism, like all of these like profoundly unjust systems. So like, yeah, it's great that he's like, where I come from, meals are a sensory feast. And it's like, well, who do you think's going to do that here?
Yeah.
It's not you. You did make toast one time, and we're very proud of you that you made toast successfully. Like, good job. I mean, are you making 3-course meals and somehow paying rent as well? So, like, these problems kind of aren't going to be solved in the past because he's broke.
No, absolutely. Can I just say, one of the things that I do like about this rom-com is there are some jokes that genuinely make me laugh out loud. Mm-hmm. And one of them is when he's complaining about the GE toaster. And he says, one would assume that the General of Electric had more integrity in his work. And it still makes me laugh, Anna. I think it's so funny.
You know what? And I like when she's like, everybody has to push their toast down twice. No one cares about this problem. I really enjoy that.
I find Hugh Jackman so charming in this movie. I love a time-traveled man. He adjusts to the new reality of this world so well. He's like, a little boy comes in and wants me to entertain him. Okay, I'll play the piano.
Pirates of Penzance it is.
Yes, sir. This guy thinks I'm an actor? Sure.
All right.
I love this man. I am very concerned about the well-being of the dog throughout this film.
Absolutely. Who's taking care of this dog?
Who is walking this dog?
It's no good.
No.
It's no good. So the other thing that I think is really worth noting about the subtext of this movie, This movie has some of the worst anti-fatness of any of the movies we've watched so far. There is a really bad scene in You've Got Mail where Tom Hanks is like, what if he's fat? And Meg Ryan, in her defense, says, I don't care about that. Mm-hmm. But in this one, there is a very clear focus on like women are pursuing thinness in order to deserve romantic love. The subplot of the diet margarine is repeatedly about losing weight. The line that she uses to sell people on using Leopold as the spokesperson is like, when you look at him, you think maybe you'll like finally lose those last 10 pounds and he'll show up at your door. So there's a very clear logic throughout that part of what you do to earn romantic love is be thin and conventionally attractive. Because in the present, we've got women trying to be thin, and we've got Meg Ryan, who will never be shown working to be thin, is always positioned as a naturally always already thin, small, blonde white woman. But then in the past, as the like physical representation of settling, we've got Kristen Schaal, who seems, by the logic of the movie, to be being positioned as like, well, obviously nobody would want to marry her, but I guess she's rich, which like is such a bummer because Kristen Schaal is an extremely attractive person.
I know.
But there is this real like, love is for hot people.
Can we use this as the moment to transition to talking about Meg Ryan in this movie?
Yes, absolutely.
Meg Ryan has this like very affected hips out way of walking. I think that in You've Got Mail, it is played for, she's basically a little kid, right? Which we talked about, this like almost asexual vibe. In this movie, I do think she is queer coded in a lot of ways. As you talked about, JJ Bradley Whitford is like, you're basically a guy. And like, she has this like jagged haircut.
She's dressed like a power lesbian, undeniably.
Yes.
It's very hot. It's a real bummer when she starts wearing dresses.
She looks amazing.
So good.
And I still think that this like hips forward, like Pinocchio, she walks like she is a puppet.
Kind of a runway walk.
Yes.
Like the disjointed runway walk is very hip bones forward.
It's like I'm so thin that I can make myself look as big as possible and I'm still gonna be thin.
Yeah, it's a big part of the logic of how models are taught to use their bodies. You know, we all had our decade of watching America's Next Top Model, Tyra Banks teaching us all about like the broken doll and like how you want to like break up the lines of your body. And there's all of these logics about how, particularly in the 90s and 2000s, women's bodies were being performed, shaped, represented in a way that was about like a deliberate sort of fetishization of hyper thinness through the angles of the body.
Yes.
And you know, other things that you've pointed out in earlier movies, right? Like in scenes in this movie, she's wearing like 17 layers.
Yeah.
And she's still so thin.
Yeah.
That is also part of what makes it possible for her to be a romantic heroine in this movie while having a very like jagged, powerful haircut and be wearing all of these like really harsh high button white blouses and black blazers, is that like she can look like a power lesbian, but underneath she is still Meg Ryan with all of the embodiment of Meg Ryan that renders her so socially acceptable as an object of romantic interest.
And the moment to me that is like the most awkward rendition of that tension is when he carries her inside on Saturday night after they've spent this like really romantic 24 hours together. He's cooked her this romantic meal. They've had this like perfect Saturday where they just walk around New York. She's running around in 800 layers, as you've talked about. It's the end of the day. It's 11:59, and they're sitting on the fire escape and like listening to her neighbors. And she's just so tired that she can't walk back into her own bedroom. So he carries her. And she lulls her head back like she's dead. Like she
and flails one of her arms out in this incredibly exaggerated fashion and says, "Oh, I'm so relaxed." It's very odd.
It's so weird. Like any reasonable person would just like snuggle up. Like it looks uncomfortable. Her neck is like hanging back. Like that cannot be comfortable. But they really did want this framed as a damsel in distress, like the cover of a romance novel, which we have to say is a shtick of the movie. Natasha Lyonne plays Meg Ryan's assistant in this movie, and she is constantly reading romance novels, and that is text, right? They are like trying to make Meg Ryan in that moment look like the cover of the romance novel. And so she's this like woman in a power suit, also damsel in distress, whose like head is falling off of her body.
Yeah, and has to be lovingly carried in. You know, the one thing for me that, again, sort of complicates this is the fact that she's 40. And it's so interesting and kind of exciting to watch her continue to have a career as a romantic comedy lead into her 40s. She's aged out of the manic pixie dream girl trope, and now she's the busy career woman who's having it all. When she's doing yoga while also trying to read reports on the ground, I'm like, a career woman. You know, so she's moved into a different set of tropes. But it is interesting to me to see romance pictured as, at this point, something that a woman who has crossed the uncrossable line of 40 is still allowed to pursue.
Yeah, and it makes sense to me that Meg Ryan is the person to do this, right? She isn't just a rom-com star. She is like the symbol of rom-com stars.
Yeah.
The casting of Meg Ryan is doing a lot of the work in this movie.
And I would also argue the casting of Meg Ryan and her history in Nora Ephron movies in particular.
Yes.
Because this movie is so interested in how hard romantic love is in the modern era that it's like, okay, well, what if we took, you know, the Meg Ryan struggling to find love amidst modernity and all of these like men who are like, JJ's almost like Tom Hanks in You've Got Mail. These men like kind of suck, but I don't know, maybe
I would say is worse than Tom Hanks.
Yes, worse, but Tom Hanks is very bad, and I personally find Bradley Whitford more charming.
Me too.
I'm a big fan.
Me too.
So there is this way that this movie sort of takes the Meg Ryan that we're familiar with from Nora Ephron movies, where she's struggling to find love in a hard, modern, technology-saturated world, and instead it gives her a fairy tale ending.
Yeah, and what I think is most interesting to me about this movie is, in terms of the Meg Ryan-ness of it, is that this is objectively an unlikable character. I think she is written as unlikable. I've mentioned Save the Cat before, where like the way that they make Tom Hanks likable at the beginning of You've Got Mail is they give him kids. In this, they have her hurt a dog.
Save the cat or shock the dog.
Shock the dog, right? Like she is willing to hurt a dog in order to hurt her ex-boyfriend. Like her introduction is not likable at all. She's trying to break into his apartment. She's calling him at 2 a.m. and like harassing him. And I think they were like, do you know how to solve this problem so that we are rooting for her, even though she's behaving like that? Have it be Meg Ryan. And that's it. You don't need her to save a cat, because the Save the Cat has happened in Sleepless in Seattle, You've Got Mail, When Harry Met Sally. They are just absolutely taking advantage of how likable she is to write this character who is just so mad. And I love her anger, right? Like Stuart was a disappointment to her, and she's taking care of her 35-year-old brother.
Yeah.
And like her boss is sexually harassing her.
Uh-huh.
Her life is awful. Of course she's mad all the time.
Yeah.
It just seems like the sugar to make this character go down is the 12 years that Meg Ryan has been playing a version of Sally.
Yeah. And it's interesting to think about her being, you know, our textbook relatable character, which is which is how we've read her in so many of these previous movies, to be like, you know what? I also relate to this. I also relate to being tired and mad and not interested in being nice to the people who drop into my life. And the fact that she is pretty consistently mean to Leopold, and he's like, yeah, this lady's mean. I'm gonna make her dinner.
She literally is like, get out. I've had a long day, get out. And he gets out. I'm really talking myself back into liking this movie. I did not enjoy watching it last night, but man, I know why I liked it once upon a time.
On the topic of Meg Ryan getting her fairy tale ending with a man from the past, I just need to briefly hit the emergency stop button because I want to talk about American obsession with the British royal family.
Okay, tell me about this American obsession with the British royal family, because I am a child of immigrants and I feel very American in so many ways. And this is one of the ways I do not feel American. I couldn't care less.
And you know what? You're on the right side of history on that one.
To be clear, Marcel Cosman, co-host of The Rest of Your Life, obsessed with the royal family, correct?
Really, really fascinated with them. The aforementioned Marcel Cosman and I actually went on Anne Helen Peterson's podcast, Culture Study, to talk about media coverage of the royal family. So I'm cribbing from my own research for that episode.
That's allowed.
Here. But it really stood out to me watching this movie when the poll that Kate has for the fact that fairy tales don't actually end well is Prince Charles and Lady Di.
Mm-hmm.
And so that, alongside the fact that if we're going to have a romantic hero that represents the way that things were done with more civility and gentility in the past, he needs to be British and a duke, all point to the way that in the American popular imagination, there's this way that Britishness is located in the past, which I do think has something to do with, like, you know, the War of Independence.
That's so embarrassing.
But there's this logic of, like, Britishness is historical. It's not a contemporary phenomenon. And thus, even contemporary British political events like the marriage of Diana to Prince Charles and their subsequent divorce and her subsequent death, those are treated as fairy tale stories linked to a sort of ahistorical romantic past that is not the past. Like, she died because the paparazzi were chasing her down, like,
and a drunk driver.
Yeah,
but, yes.
She became in part the people's princess because she was willing to go and visit and sit with people who had HIV and AIDS. Like, she's an incredibly contemporary figure whose story is very much about, like, contemporary femininity and the 20th century role of the British monarchy. But, you know, we see it now in the way that people talk about Kate Middleton and Meghan Markle, that there's this idea that, like, the British royal family represents a romanticized history, but particularly a romanticized history that never actually existed. It's fundamentally ahistorical, and it is fundamentally about imagining the past as a time that was simpler, easier to live in, had better moral ideals somehow, didn't have the kinds of complexities that the present day does. And we see this playing out in the movie in the way that the past is figured as a site of escape for Kate, that she is able to put on a fancy ball gown and go into the past and escape out of everything that makes being a woman in the contemporary moment hard. But for any of that to make sense, you have to understand her to be escaping into the same fully ahistorical, never actually existed version of the past that the American fantasy of Britishness is built upon.
One of the things that I have learned over the last few years that I find most interesting about the ahistorical way that we think of the British monarchy is the way that the British monarchy has also believed in its own sort of mythology.
Mm-hmm.
Henry VIII loved play acting as like a 13th century King Arthur knight.
Yeah.
And he would dress up and have his guys, I don't know, his servants.
His dudes
play act with him, right? Like building a mythology of grandeur within the British monarchy, like it's a self-perpetuating thing.
Absolutely, because it's a system that is about continuity and that is about the legitimacy of continuity, that its continuity is what legitimizes it. It is so interesting to me, as somebody from a country that is still part of the Commonwealth, that like only repatriated our constitution in the 1980s, that is like just fully like we are colonial subjects. And it is so fascinating to me the way that the US, as the ascendant empire that took over global power after the dismantling of the British Empire after World War II, thinks about the British Empire. And particularly, like, there are a lot of ways that the growth of US imperialism was about differentiating the way the US was going to do things from the way that the UK had done things, which again provided a sort of political motivation to say this is something of the past and we are something of the present. But that pastness and that link to continuity, to chivalry, to fantasies of an empire that will never fall still holds a romantic appeal. I think particularly holds a romantic appeal for the American popular imagination. In part, yes, because of the way that the British monarchy constructs itself, but also I think in part because of the way that the American popular and political imagination constructed the British monarchy in order to differentiate itself.
So this movie is about my personal freedom.
Yeah, and if you're really, really free, if you're truly free, then you should be free to give up all your human rights.
That is what I choose, Hannah. With my freedom.
Yeah, and we should respect a woman's right to choose.
Well, Hannah, you should watch this movie if
you're turned on by hearing Hugh Jackman describe breakfast foods.
Which is why I love this movie. I am.
Okay, great.
I am.
Vanessa, you should watch this movie if
you would be the nurse at the psych ward who believed a patient. I love her.
She cries. She cries. She believes
I believe you, Stuart.
I'll sneak you out. I'm going to lose my job.
I find his injuries so confusing.
He fell down an elevator shaft.
I understand what happened to him. He just sometimes is walking around fine. Sometimes he's like, you can't possibly move. And then a day later, he's like running around.
Listen, he's a physicist. Maybe he healed himself with physics.
Okay. I forgot about that. Next week, we are watching the final scene and analyzing the HEA. And if you want to hear us discuss the like big argument scene in this movie, the I'm tired scene, sign up for our Patreon.
Oh, I'm tired. Never related more to Alon.
Me neither. The Brooklyn Bridge features largely in Kate and Leopold. At the beginning of the film, we are watching its construction and the beginning of the Brooklyn Bridge. And one of the things that we get to see Hugh Jackman as the Duke of Albany realize is that bridges are one of the things that last 130 years. And he's very excited that this is still a part of New York City. We thought it would be really fun to learn more about the Brooklyn Bridge. I don't really know anything about it. So we are going to get Dominique Jean-Louis on the phone. Dominique is the chief historian at the Center for Brooklyn History, and let's give her a call. Hi, Dominique. Thank you so much for getting on the phone.
Hi, I'm so honored to be called and excited to talk about the Brooklyn Bridge.
I can't even tell you how excited I am. Okay, so can you please tell me, how did the city of New York think about the Brooklyn Bridge when it was being built?
So the Brooklyn Bridge, I think everyone was tremendously excited for the bridge to open, mostly because we have to remember that when the Brooklyn Bridge was being built and when it opened, Brooklyn was a separate city. It was kind of known as America's first suburb. People would commute to the island of Manhattan and then come home to Brooklyn.
They commuted via ferry?
That's the thing, exactly. So first, before the steamboat is invented, people would literally go back and forth with rowboats, and it was so long. And so, you can imagine when weather was bad, it wasn't a great solution. There would be boat traffic and people would get stuck out there. It was not great. And of course, the steamboat ferries make things a lot easier, but you're still relying on passenger travel in the middle of the East River. People are kind of jammed on these ferries. They get incredibly crowded. And so everyone is thinking, surely there has to be a better way. And then, of course, when the bridge is begun in 1869, everyone is just is it done yet? Is it done yet? They're so excited to finally have this mechanism to get back and forth, because not only were people commuting across, but Brooklyn is so incredibly important as still a site of agriculture. People are still moving goods across to the island of Manhattan. And the faster that can happen, the more efficiently that can happen, everyone's going to benefit, because the city of New York and the city of Brooklyn are growing so rapidly in this time period. Anything to speed up transportation, speed up shipping was a huge necessity.
So how were people going to use the bridge? This is before our subways running?
Subways are not running yet. The subways won't come around until the 1900s. And so when the bridge first opens in 1883, it's actually still horse traffic. So there's trolleys installed on the bridge so that people could take horse-drawn carriages, omnibuses, and other kinds of horse-led travel across the bridge. The first cars start to make travels across the bridge in 1901, but it's not until 1950 when, this is post-World War II, car infrastructure is becoming more of a national priority. It's not until then that the trolley tracks are removed and that the bridge is mainly used for vehicular traffic, and then, of course, for pedestrian traffic as well. So the bridge was always open to pedestrian traffic and always designed to be a place where people could walk between Manhattan and Brooklyn.
How long is the bridge? How long is that walk?
So the bridge is about 1,595 feet, so it's just over a mile.
Okay, about 1,595. Okay.
About, exactly. Give or take an inch.
Thank you. Okay, so what are some of the basic facts of construction? How long did it take? How much did it cost? Did people die?
Okay, so the bridge takes about 14 years to complete. It started in 1869. So to paint the picture, we're just a few years out of the Civil War. America is really still shaping. I mean, some people call the Civil War the second founding, right? So this is still a kind of nascent nation in this new era after the end of slavery, when the Union almost broke up into two. And so this was kind of seen as an exciting project that would both, give some life and excitement to a city that suffered such severe losses during the war, but also as such a roadmap forward to future prosperity. So it begins in 1869, and then it's completed in 1883 and is open on May 24th. So it takes 14 years to build, and at the time, it's the longest suspension bridge in the world. Suspension bridges are a newer technology, and they got the right guy to do it. So John Roebling was the initial designer and engineer of the Brooklyn Bridge. He's a German immigrant. He was known for being the suspension bridge guy. He had built bridges elsewhere in the Northeast, and so he was kind of the guy to make this architectural feat happen. So One of the things about suspension bridges is that you are putting these caissons, these kind of like sunken work sites into the river. You're going down below the water to embed the anchorages into the kind of bedrock of the river and then suspending the bridge from the top of those kind of embedded pillars. And so it's really dangerous work sending people down there. What we know now is that the water pressure creates a condition for people if they work too long down there called the bends or caissons disease. Those kind of sunken work sites are known as caissons. And it's incredibly dangerous. We know that 20 workers were killed over the course of the building of the bridge, but it's hard to estimate how many more were, suffered caissons disease in the bends and just other injuries. It was really dangerous work. John Roebling, almost immediately after the bridge was begun, got injured and died. But luckily, his son was able to step into the role of chief engineer. And his son was always going to be involved in the building of the bridge. In fact, John had sent Washington and his brand new bride, Emily Roebling, off to Europe for their honeymoon, not just to be lovey-dovey newlyweds, but to learn about suspension bridge architecture and engineering over in Europe.
I would be so mad as the wife. I'd be like, that's not a honeymoon, that's a work trip.
This is the thing, though. Emily Roebling was a very different type broad. She was so into it. Like, it wasn't just...
I love her.
It wasn't just, when you're done talking to all the scientists, we'll go grab dinner, I'll go shopping. Emily was right there in a lot of those meetings. She was fascinated, which was really helpful because when Washington Roebling eventually gets ill and can no longer come to the worksite, he was deaf and blind initially from the severity of this caissons disease. So she would be his literal eyes and ears. She was going back and forth between the work site and their Brooklyn Heights home, but not just as his kind of secretary. She really took on that role of engineer. There's a story about how, of course, a bridge had never been built on this scale before, so the parts didn't exist to build it. So there was a point at which they needed to get these particular pieces of the scaffolding built, and they didn't know how to build them at that scale, and it took Emily going down to the site and sketching out, this is what we need, and this is how you're going to construct it, and here are the specs. And they all walked away like, who is this woman who can build, these apparatuses with a pen and paper? But she's really that involved, that bright, and that brilliant.
Has no one written this movie or novel?
There have been little things here and there. So the New York Times recently featured her in their Overlooked series where they write obituaries of people they should have written obituaries of when they died. But I think she's been on The Gilded Age. I think she's kind of
okay, she is.
There's a lovely children's book, too, about her role in building the Brooklyn Bridge, which I think is a great lesson for young kids about, how people rise to their circumstances. But she's a fascinating woman. She she studies law when she's in her 50s. She's just incredibly bright. And New York City is incredibly lucky that she was, because if 2 generations of Roeblings were out for the count, what would have happened to this bridge? I think about it a lot because I actually walk across the Brooklyn Bridge constantly. That's my commute back from work. So I'm probably walking across that bridge a couple times a week at least. And I think about sometimes like, man, this thing has been standing for this long and there's never been like a real structural issue. It's been reinforced in things over the years, but this thing is solid. And if she wasn't that intrepid, that full of vim, we would maybe have a very different kind of structure, a very different bridge, a different history. And she was like in her 20s when the construction started. This is a young woman who's just
I hate her.
deciding, you know what, I am not going to be left out of history. And she also was no shrinking violet. If you'll permit me, there's a great quote that is often used from her in 1898. She's writing to her son and she says, I have more brains, common sense, and know-how generally than have any 2 engineers, civil or uncivil. And but for me, the Brooklyn Bridge would never have had the name Roebling in any way connected with it. She's basically no, I replaced my husband and his father in history. It's because of me. I am responsible for the bridge. You're welcome, Emily Roebling.
True, Emily. Good work. Dominique, I just have to ask, is there one fact that you're I really want everyone to know this about the Brooklyn Bridge?
One is it's always really been beloved. Like from the moment it opened, people have loved the bridge. And so commemorations have been as part of the Brooklyn Bridge's history as its opening. So for instance, in 1983, for the bridge's centennial, they really kind of went for it. So there's a huge art installation that like projects light and images on the anchorages. You know, the Brooklyn Museum does a big exhibition, but my favorite very fun fact of that is Baskin-Robbins adds a flavor, and it's Brooklyn Bridge brownie, and it's available. They first give it to the construction workers who are doing maintenance for the bridge, and then it's available for everyone else. And I just love Brooklyn Bridge brownie has a moment in 1983. But then, of course, I think a story that a lot of people know, but is still really interesting, is that, you know, this was infrastructure at such a massive scale, and people had a tough time trusting it, right? That this bridge is really going to withstand the traffic, that it's strong enough to withhold all those people going across. And so on the one hand, that fear caused tragedy. So about a week after the bridge opens in 1883, there is a stampede. Someone trips and falls on the stairs leading up to the bridge, and people erroneously believe that the bridge is falling and there's a stampede, and 12 people died and 36 were injured in that massive stampede. There were 15,000 people on the bridge at the time. So while that's, of course, incredibly tragic, I think it's also really revealing about, despite how important and exciting the opening of the bridge was, it's still a moment where we're kind of like, is science working? Is this for real? Am I safe walking across this bridge? So that kind of distrust is very much there. But that tragedy inspired a moment that I think a lot of people know about the bridge, which is 19th century iconoclast P.T. Barnum sees a business opportunity in that distrust, and he goes, I'm going to prove that the bridge is solid as a rock. So what does he do? But a year after the bridge opens in 1884, he parades 21 elephants down the Brooklyn Bridge and 17 camels in order to prove that if a bridge can withstand 21 elephants, it can certainly withstand a few Brooklynites enjoying the view. So I think it's part of the New York spirit that, you know, moments of difficulty inspire spectacle. It's a city that loves spectacle, and that's definitely what P.T. Barnum was bringing in the 19th century.
Dominique, thank you so much. This was just such a delight. We'll find an excuse to have you back on. There are other movies that include Brooklyn.
Please do. There's so many. Brooklyn's a place to fall in love, and I'm always happy to use it as a place to talk about history.
Absolutely. You've been listening to Hot and Bothered. We're a small show, so we need your support in order to run. If you can, please consider supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/hotandbotheredrompod. If you love the show, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We are a Not Sorry production. I'm the executive producer, and we're edited and produced by Ariana Nettleman. We are distributed by Acast. We love to thank our soulmate level patrons, Molly Reilly, who we would chase through an airport to declare our love to, Becky Boo, who we would wait for hours on the top of the Empire State Building for, Elizabeth Schweinsberg, whose heart we would play a game of one-on-one basketball for, and Lauren Bear O'Connell, who we would call up on stage to dance with us in front of the whole summer camp. A big thanks this week to Dominique Jean-Louis, and of course to our wonderful team, Julia Argy, Nikki Zoltan, AJ Uramas, Courtney Brown, and Stephanie Paulsell.